welcome to the Culture and Conservation webinar series. And today's talk is a reprise of a talk that I gave to the Western Governors Association. And we're going to start it right now. Hela iluna ke alo la ni huli magani magani ho Ola Ka Āina itabali ahi kolo yu kakamai leo na pu umai mai na pu ulu he hiwa ka o hi aha mai da ha ta ai na ke ki ola ta ai na Ola Ke Kanaka Ola ina kiye. That translated, upturned is the face of Lanihudi and the wind that sets to dancing the Kawelu grass on the Ahihi cliff. Tangled, crawling in the uplands are the Maile of Napu'umai'a, and from the hills of sacred Uluhe comes the Ohi'aha. From the breath of the land comes the life-giving Ki'owa rain. As the land lives, the people live, and may the multitude have life. The endangered species of Hawaii are a subset of the biota endemic to this archipelago, ones that are restricted to Hawaii. An endangered status is a designation assigned by a federal agency and one that's recognized with some modifications by the state of Hawaii. It's a designation that parallels other systems used to assess rarity and threat of extinction, such as the IUCN Red List and the Global Ranking System of Nature Conservancy. The Fish and Wildlife Service recognizes 468 of the roughly 1,400 native vascular plants of Hawaii as threatened, endangered, or candidates for such status, and that's over a third of the total native Hawaiian vascular flora. In Hawaii, even our state flower is on the endangered species list, as well as our state mammal, the Hawaiian bat, the Ope'ape'a, and our state bird, the Hawaiian goose, the nene, and our state marine mammal. However, such designations don't offer us a very detailed picture of the significance of our rare and endangered species to our cultural heritage here in Hawaii. It turns out that with such a high percentage of Hawaiian plants and animals given endangered status, it does not take long to find species with strong cultural significance among them. Not very long at all. So let's explore some of these cultural connections by looking at three major themes. First, an exploration of how from ancient times the deities of the Hawaiian pantheon were associated with specific plants and animals. Secondly, some of the material expressions of Hawaiian culture derived from currently endangered species. And finally, the way that native species, including rare ones, form the foundation of Hawaiian traditional knowledge. Each of these topics could take days. So we'll have to skim the surface to give a feel for the cultural context of the conservation of our Hawaiian endangered species. Hawaiian tradition holds that ancestral spirits can take the forms of many different native plants and animals. And these many forms, called kinolau, are physical manifestations of a deity and thus are held sacred. Let's explore a few of the sacred kinolau of the major Hawaiian gods called Akua. The traditional pantheon of Hawaii is dominated by four major akua that together embody all of the elements of the Hawaiian universe. Notice in particular how Ku and Lono divide the year into the dry, hot summer and the cool, wet winter, and how Kane and Kanaloa each hold sway over land and fresh water versus the ocean, respectively. Their realms of influence in space and time taken together cover all the phenomenon of land, sea, and sky, as well as human behavior. Part of their realms are entirely under their jurisdiction. Kanaloa, for example, as god of the sea, is also the god of oceanic voyaging. Kane, as the god of fresh water, oversees water-intensive agriculture. And because Ku is both god of governance and hot summer months, warfare between chiefs was only allowed during the summer. And during Lono's wet, cool season, warfare was forbidden, and the fine arts were the focus. Ku is the Hawaiian god of war, governance, and leadership, among many other things. And so, as in many cultures, raptors such as Io, our endangered Hawaiian hawk, are embodiments of the fierceness of Ku. Likewise, our Hawaiian owl, the pueo, listed as endangered on the island of Oahu, can be the kino of an ancestral guardian of warriors, Ku Kawakahi. Ku is the Hawaiian god of war, governance, and leadership, but likewise, Ilio, dog forms, are also strongly associated with Ku, and so the dog of the sea, Ilio Kai, the endangered Hawaiian monk seal, is also kino lau of Ku. Because Ku is rigorous, upright, and persistent, all of the tallest and hardest trees of the Hawaiian forest are kino lau of Ku. This includes the dominant tree of our watersheds, Ohi Alehua, whose red flowers also represent the blood of warfare. But it also includes trees now extremely endangered, such as Mehamehame, one of the hardest of Hawaiian woods. Lono, in contrast to Ku, is the god of the wet winter season, god of peace and of fertility, and among his kino lau are all ferns, including rare and endangered species such as Tenetus squamigera, paoa, shown here. Even very small, obscure ferns were sometimes associated strongly with Lono. The tiny Oali'i Makali'i fern, for example, is one of the kino lau of Lono, and named for the constellation of the season of Lono, the Makali'i, known to the Western world as the Seven Sisters or the Pleiades. When Captain Cook made first contact with Hawaiians in January of 1778, he arrived in the middle of Lono's Hawaiian winter season of peaceful games, and was witness to the ceremonies and symbols of the time. Overlooking this boxing contest, for example, was the great staff of Lono, decorated with white banners and the skins of seabirds. And because migratory seabirds arrive in large numbers during the winter in Hawaii, it stands to reason that protected seabirds such as our moali, albatross, are also kino lau of Lono. Kane, as the god of fresh water, is associated with wetland plants and with certain rains, thunder, and lightning. In Hawaiian, the word for lightning is kawila, and kawila is also the name for one of our rarest and most endangered lowland dry forest trees, Colubrina oppositifolia, a kino of Kane, and also one of the most valuable and sought-after Hawaiian hardwoods. Trees with strongly yellow wood were expressions of Kane also, including rare and endangered trees today, such as Bobea timonioides, Gardenia brighamii, and Ocrosia haleakalai. Kanaloa, as god of the sea and as the salty brother of Kane. The kino lau of Kanaloa are sometimes hard to explain. Palupalua Kanaloa, Kanaloa kaho'olavensis, is an extremely rare mimosoid shrub found only on a salt-sprayed cliff on the island of Kaho'olawe, an island that itself is considered a kino of Kanaloa, so that is understandable. But Apapuhia Kanaloa, or Liparis hawaiiensis, is one of our 3 endemic orchid species. How does that delicate upland forest species so far from the sea belong to Kanaloa? Perhaps it's because Apapuhi, the Hawaiian shampoo ginger that Paul Mitchell made his fame and millions from, is a lowland plant that grows along the freshwater courses of Kane, and the Liparis, also growing from both and with similar though smaller and more delicate foliage, and growing separate from the Avapuhi of Kane, is instead given to Kane's brother, Kanaloa. The ocean connection also means that all cetaceans are expressions of Kanaloa, such as Nai'a, dolphins, and Kohola, the Hawaiian subpopulation of humpback whales. Of course, the Hawaiian pantheon is not just the big 4, but they say the 4, the 40, the 400, the 4,000, the 40,000, the 400,000 gods. Each of these may be represented sometimes by very specific kino lau, but the overall conclusion is that every living plant and animal in the Hawaiian universe can serve as a physical manifestation of a deity. How did such a rich cultural system develop in Hawaii? It seems pretty clear that it was the richness of the setting, the ecosystems, and the biota that allowed Hawaiian culture to thrive. The islands of Hawaii, offering far more than the cliche of white sandy beaches and palm trees, in fact, boast a huge range of ecosystems and conditions, with topography ranging from uneroded, youthful lava landscapes to razorback ridges created as the end products of millennia of erosion. From lands that were created just this morning, barren and devoid of life, to climax forests supporting thousands of species. From cinderlands as dry as any of the world's deserts to arguably the wettest spot on Earth. And from coastal dunes at sea level to snow-capped volcanic summits just shy of 14,000 feet. This was a setting that provided not only for bountiful necessities, but the rich luxuries of Hawaiian life, and which recognized and revered the uncountable manifestations of the living world around them as the collective kino lau of an equally diverse pantheon of gods. But moving from the kino lau, the second theme deals with the material culture associated with endangered species, and today find their way into almost every aspect. And I'll give only a few examples because species that are endangered today find their way into almost every aspect of Hawaiian material culture. Just recently, one of the most magnificent cultural treasures of Hawaii was returned from British Commonwealth hands back to the people of Hawaii. The feather cloak and helmet of Kalani Opu'u, who was the chief of the island of Hawaii when Captain Cook first came here, and who received these from that chief 238 years ago. It's a testament to British care that the hundreds of thousands of bright feathers carefully tied into the cloak and helmet are not only intact, but still bear their original magnificence. Those feathers are largely from two species of birds, one extinct, the Hawaii o'o, and the other, the i'iwi, rare and declining, already given endangered status by the state of Hawaii. Hawaiian featherwork is probably the most obvious expression of the importance of rare and endangered Hawaiian species to Hawaiian culture. The brilliant colors of the forest birds directly link the chiefly aliki class with the upland realm of the gods, the Wawakua. In the ancient Hawaiian universe, the world was divided into a dichotomy. The realm of people, the Ola Ka Kanaka, occupied the lowlands where that which grows is the result of human effort, while above this comfortable lowland zone was the Wawakua, the realm of the gods, where human effort had nothing to do with the verdant growth of native forests, and where conditions were often wild and elemental. Indeed, the heavily forested wilds of the Wawakua were considered profoundly sacred and perilous for human incursion. Only small parties led by specialists with knowledge of the forest and its resources could enter the Wawakua, and only with purposeful, positive intent and after rigorous ceremonial protocols. The Kiamanu, the bird catcher, was one of those few who could do so, gathering the raw materials for the sacred feathered symbol. Who's that? The clothing of the meahula of ancient times is called kapa, which is pounded cloth of the paper mulberry called wauke. Hawaiian kapa is recognized as some of the finest in all of Polynesia. Paper mulberry is neither endangered nor native to Hawaii, but the next step is where rare species come in. Perhaps the finest yellow dye was produced by the na'u, the native tree gardenia, another dry forest tree. Its simple six-petaled flowers are followed by the production of a round seed pod. That seed pod's interior is brilliant yellow-orange, creating a dye so beautiful it's likened to the glow of the setting sun. Dyes were not only for kapa. Red color is useful also for fishing, since many marine fish and invertebrates see red as black. So a net dyed red is visible to the fisherman, but invisible to the fish. A fine red dye was derived from the bark of the kokio, Hawaiian tree cotton, and was once so common in the lowlands of the island of Hawaii that fishing nets were commonly dyed red with it. And in ancient Hawaii, every household fished, but it wasn't overexploitation for traditional uses that was the death knell for this tree. It was cattle, introduced grasses, and fire, the bane of all dry forests. Now the species is down to a handful of individuals in the wild, and it survives largely in cultivation. Another expression of ornamentation that Hawaii is famous for is the lei. though most of the lei you see nowadays are brightly colored non-native plants. But thanks to research into traditional sources, we know that many, such as the lei, beautiful kinds of lei, came out of the nahele malo'o, the dry forest, such as the lei wili wili, the lei uhi uhi, you can look forward to that, the lei halapepe, and the lei alahe'e. Two of these pictured here are now endangered species. Lei were not only made of flowers. This dancer wears a lei po'o, a head lei of ferns, and around his neck and wrists are kupe'e shells. The kupe'e is a native nerite that's used for lei making. The now endangered Hawaiian snails in the genus Acatinella were called pu'u kuahiwi, land shells, and were both diverse and beautiful. Over half are extinct today, thanks to destruction of habitat and introduction of non-native predators. But in traditional times, even up to the 20th century, they were described as abundant. Brightly colored clusters of snails were to be found on forest plants in the mountains, and at least one famous lei of their shells belonging to Queen Liliuokalani has survived to today. In summary, every material aspect of Hawaiian life, whether dyes for clothing, medicinal treatments, wood for weapons and tools, or the basic framework for Hawaiian structures, species endangered today played central roles there. Finally, leaving the material culture behind, I want to touch on the role of native species in traditional knowledge. The unique plants and animals of Hawaii were woven into oral tradition, and the same tight regional endemism that contributes to extinction vulnerability is to be seen in the very specific regional oral traditions that celebrate and value regional diversity. Only in Ka'u on Hawaii Island can you find this species of silver sword. Only in the windward flanks of Maui can you find the akohekohe, or crested honey creeper. Only in the leeward forests on Kauai can you find the fragrant mokihana. Only in the summit ridges of Oahu grow the famous lehua ahihi, and all of the species of the pu'u kanioi, the singing land shells. It was the role of Hawaiian intellectuals and practitioners to know and teach about the nature of resource distribution and the fact that not all lands were to be treated as equal, but as valued places providing for unique resources according to their regional ecologies. Finally, I want to offer some examples out of the Kumu Lipo, one of the classic pieces of Hawaiian oral tradition. It starts with the creation of the universe out of hot, spinning chaos, to the origins of life in the sea in simple forms such as the coral polyps, and building through generation of life of sea, land, and sky, culminating with the birth of the Hawaiian gods and the creation of human beings, and our familial relationship with everything that came before us. The chant is thousands of lines long out of necessity to tell such a grand evolutionary epic. And one of the most interesting features is an element of dualism between land and sea creatures, in a guardian relationship where the life of the land is held responsible for the life of the sea. Among the hundreds of land and sea pairings offered by the Kumu Lipo are the following that involve species now endangered or protected. In each of them, you'll get to guess which of the two are endangered before the red star endangered species marker appears. Hanau te puhi kawila no hoikai, kia iie tawila no hoiuka. Born is the kawila eel living in sea, guarded by the kawila tree living on the land. That was a giveaway. Hanau te honu no hoikai, kia iie te kuhonua no hoiuka. Born is the sea turtle living in the sea, guarded by the maile seedling living on land. Another easy one. Hanau te palaua no hoikai, kia iia ta aua no hoiuka. Born is the toothed whale living in the sea, guarded by the sandalwood living on land. And in this case, there are endangered species of both. In each of these examples, the counterpart on land is held responsible for the care of the counterpart in the sea. It is likely a reflection on the knowledge that actions on the landscape have their impacts on the sea via the flow of waters across the land and into the ocean. Care of the land and its resources therefore means care of the sea and its resources. There's an olelo no eo, a wise Hawaiian saying, that reflects this service relationship well. He Ola Ka Āina, he Ola Ke Kanaka. The land is the chief, and the people mere servants. Of all the traditional Hawaiian values, the one most globally recognized today is aloha. Aloha, empathetic compassion, love. The aloha that you hold for family extends in Hawaiian thought to all the elements of nature around you, in your āina, the lands of your place, and emerges as aloha āina, a deep appreciation and love for all the features of the land. You realize that you're not whole without your place, and the fate and health of your place is essentially your own fate, your own health. So in Hawaii, issues of endangered species are not peripheral to, but central to cultural issues. And the handling of endangered species issues should be approached with the same aloha that the people of the land show to the kino lau of their ancestors as unique and priceless assets inherent in the land and sea. And that's what I showed them. Did you guys miss the beginning? I started right as well.
I know, I did 15 minutes.
That was awesome.
Was that okay?
I was having a little lunch up in the kitchen, and then I heard your voice. Must have been through the car. Then I remembered, what's going on?
Yeah, and you came down. Okay, so
yeah.
shall I end the recording, or shall we keep going with the recording? Oh, thank
Keep going.
you. All right. I can unmute everybody now. You want to try that?
Questions?
Or you want to try typing your questions into the chat box, if you guys have any? And we'll also entertain questions and comments here. So.
I'm sorry, this is what you presented it in Big Island?
I presented this to the Western Governors Association meeting.
So what were some of the questions that you got from, so can you tell us, the Western Governors meeting, was it mostly, there are folks from other Western states as well?
Yeah, it was the governors or the staff of other Western states.
And then what were some of the questions you received from them?
They were really interested in how the species that were so abundant then are endangered now. And so I had a chance to wax poetic about the history of land use in Hawaii and the change of relationship from family to commodity. And so we talked about the sandalwood era and the first commodification of native species, and what a disaster that was for not only lowland forest, sandalwood species, but also society. In Hawaii, it took people away from their fields and from everyday life in order to gather up the debt that was being incurred. And then we talked about Western style, continental, large scale monocrop agriculture, like ranching and pineapple and sugar, and how you displace entire lower halves of ecosystems running from land to sea and entirely disrupt ecosystem process that way. What was the question? Let's see. Is there an effort in place to educate tourists of our endangered species? I think that people are largely unaware of endangered species. It takes a very sophisticated traveler to understand that aspect and to really be coming to Hawaii in order to see those things. I know a lot of them just want to see whatever brightly colored flowers, nice smelling things, nice looking things. Aside from articles that show up in Hanaho magazine or various other things, or if you go to the museum, you can get a feel for those kinds of things. But it's not generally well known nor easily promulgated because it's kind of a negative message to visitors. I think that if it's presented in a way that talks about that talks about how wonderful they are, what services they provided before, and what led to the way they are. I think it could be done right, but I think it takes effort to do that. One hotel, I forget which one now, asked me to do a short TV thing for their in-room things, and I took folks hiking up on a ridge and talked about sandalwood and saw some of those things. But it was a ridge on Oahu, so we didn't have anything endangered. So there are a lot of endangered things on Oahu, but not on that ridge. So I think that there's a need for it. Wow, you have a lot of questions. Okay, wait. I'm interested in the connection of our native seabirds and land and the land and culture. Are we working to protect them? We need the stories of their importance to our culture and lives. You have a story for these creatures and their role today. Yes, seabirds were really common, probably in the lowlands and not relegated to offshore islets as they are today. Part of the problem was introduction of more and more predators such as cats and mongoose and other things. But even at the time of Hawaiian occupation in the islands, pre-contact, there were rats introduced, and dogs and pigs, both of which would love eggs lying on the ground. So I have a feeling that the process of relegation of seabirds to offshore islets began during that time. Nonetheless, I bet you they were all over the cliffs where the dogs and pigs were having a hard time to go, and that it wasn't until we started to overwhelm them with all kinds of predators and diseases, I suppose, that they declined to the point where now the only places that they have are offshore islets and Papahana, Mokuakea. So I think that their story needs to be told more. Even ecologists talk about how important seabirds were as a way to take nutrients from the sea, and in a shower of droppings from millions of seabirds nesting on the land, sometimes way up into the forest on the mountain, they probably were really important in the nutrient balance of native forests, especially on an island such as Kauai, where the soils are so depleted of nutrients that nearly everything has to come in from the air. I think it was Vitusek, his lab showed that most of the nutrients were coming in the form of dust from Mongolian deserts, blown on the jet stream and settling out onto Kauai, which struck me as really amazing. It turns out that almost all the nutrients that were in the forests of Kauai are immediately recycled as soon as a plant dies or as soon as it drops leaves, and that many of the plants hold on very jealously to their leaves. They'll have leaves on the same ohia tree for years at a time before it finally senesces and falls off the tree, versus, most of your house plants are put out a leaf, and by a month later that leaf is history and there are new leaves to replace it. So not so on Kauai. It's a very nutrient-poor or oligotrophic system. But if you had seabirds replenishing the nutrients, that would be a completely different picture. I wonder what the forest of Kauai looked like in those days, Okay, so thank you. That was a neat question. Seabirds, effort to educate tourists, not really good. Do you think it's feasible to collaborate with hotels to feature endangered plants and trees? I think so. I think that many of our endangered plants and animals, including all of our state plants and animals, are endangered, and so that would be one way to do it, right? You talk about, hey, what's the state flower of Hawaii? And then you just go through all of it, just like I did in the beginning of the show, to talk about their endangered status and how vulnerable island systems are. I think an educated tourist would appreciate those kinds of things. You mentioned that the Kinola of Kanaloa are a bit obscure. Would you recommend more on any commonalities that you found? The thing with Kanaloa is that you notice that when I put up the chart of gods and all of the proliferation of names of the different sub-gods under Ku and Kane and Lono, there was only one under Kanaloa, and that's weird. In the rest of the Pacific, Tangaroa is a major god, and there are all kinds of forms of him. But in Hawaii, for some reason, it's difficult to find long lists of Kanaloa gods. So Ulalia has something to say.
I was going to ask you, which one name did you have up there again? Can you remind me?
I had Paluhalua Kanaloa, which is a modern thing, and so that one was just a logical extension. But the Avapuhia Kanaloa, the Liparis, our native orchid.
So you were looking for them in plants?
Or animals. And the animals are Kohola, those make sense. So, but we were talking about, when you have a lot of forms of akua, named forms of akua, many times they give you a clue of what their kinolau are. Like, ku ika ohia lele, that would be pretty easy to do. Or ku hulu hulu, you can say, is associated with bird catchers and with birds. But since Kanaloa doesn't have a long litany of names, it's more difficult to explore the kinolau of Kanaloa, unless they show up obviously in the name of a plant or animal. Yeah, that was a really good question. So if somebody wants to go in their time machine, I mean, part of the problem, I think, and here was one of the theories, was that during the missionary days, there was an attempt to do equivalence between the Hawaiian major gods and the Holy Trinity. And Kane, Ku, and Lono got the Holy Trinity thing, and Kanaloa was relegated to the devil. So in which case you don't want to even talk about Kanaloa, you don't want to celebrate Kanaloa, and yet we know in ancient times Kanaloa was major because he had like 4 days of the lunar calendar. So
one of the many consequences of trying to shove something into another box.
Yeah, that's right. So that's why we need time machine research. Go back, but don't interfere, please. But listen carefully. Come back and tell us. Is it possible transpose this presentation to live audio and make it available on the TNC site? Yes, we are recording even this interchange of questions and answers, and it is being recorded, and we are going to put the link up. We can put it on the TNC site or in some other manner.
Sam, do you have any examples of personal or tribal identity or cultural identity of Hawaiian culture as a whole that links to one particular species, like how in New Zealand kiwi is used as
just like the country mascot, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to I don't think you're going to get consensus on like Ope as the country mascot, even though it's our only land mammal, right?
Or moku-based or apua-based. I know family-based.
Well, certainly, there are aumakua there are families that recognize certain aumakua, and so that's about as close as you get. If anybody wants to, like, for example, I always wanted Iiwi to be our state bird instead of Nene, because it's a much classier looking bird. Has a nicer song too, although not much nicer. Okay, it has a much nicer song. Sorry, Iiwi. But what would Australia's animal be? Wombats? Kangaroos? Yeah. Tiny kangaroo down, right? Given the importance of all species in Hawaiian culture, do you think that greater protection and acknowledgement through IUCN and the World Heritage Site status would be beneficial? We already have some World Heritage Sites in Hawaii. Haleakala, I think, and Hawaii Volcanoes National Park are both World Heritage Sites. Koinui Marsh is a Ramsar wetland of global importance that was recognized by IUCN and the United Nations. So there is acknowledgement of certain places, but it would be amazing. And Papahanaumokuakea, of course, is a World Heritage Site. But it would be kind of neat if the whole Hawaiian archipelago was recognized as a World Heritage Site on the basis of its biocultural significance. That would be something that we could put forward at the World Conservation Congress. And it's small enough. I mean, if you do Papahanaumokuakea, you can do the rest of the archipelago that's smaller than that. Thanks for your questions. Those are cool. And mahalo to you guys for having the patience to sign in. I'm glad it seems that the majority of you were able to see and hear the presentation remotely. That's very promising. That means that we'll be continuing to do this again. And so one of the last exercises that I want to do, because it's only what time?
12:36.
Oh, I have plenty of time. Okay, the last thing I want to do is have a discussion and a kind of polling or a brainstorming on what topic next you want to see in this thing, because we have a month. I have something lined up if I don't have time to put together whatever topics you have, but if you're interested in seeing something particular, why don't you type it down in your chat box and call it out over here, and I'll write them down. And I'll write them down in a little notepad thingy. Well, what did I do? I think I just escaped out of those two things, right? That was bad. Okay, so now I have to look at it again, right? How do I do that?
Participant, chat, sorry.
Chat, there we go. Yeah, okay, good. Next topic would be freshwater resources. Now, I want it to be biological. No, okay. Maybe freshwater, maybe stream animals or stream biota and water. But I agree with you, water, of course, is important, but if we went there, no, I already did one on water and watershed, right? Didn't I?
That was like your first one.
That was my first one, so you missed out, Maggie, sorry.
Adaptations.
Wow. Okay. This is Hawaiian Culture and Conservation, you know. So, okay.
I'm not the one presenting it.
Okay, adaptation. Remember, we want cultural topics. I like adaptation, though, because adaptation is a part of society as well, right? Part of culture.
Or endemism. And then you can kind of...
Yeah, we can go through expand on this regional endemism thing.
Yeah.
Okay?
And how it pertains to culture, too.
Ooh, you're making it hard. That'll be fun, though, right?
Yeah.
On what island can you find this? You can do quizzes. Anybody else? Any other topic that you wanted?
How about biomimicry in Hawaiian culture?
Biomimicry in Hawaiian culture. Wow.
The design from nature?
Yeah. Wow. That is a good one. We'd have to think about that. You guys will have to help me.
What about something along the lines of the ecological colonization of our islands, and then once the Polynesians came in, how the Hawaiian culture spread throughout the islands?
Yeah, you've seen my Hawaiian Footprint Project presentation, yeah? Yeah, so that kind of is it. And, the details of where things started first and what the population rate was, it's harder to do, right? And how to do that over time and over islands, that would be a much harder thing to do. I'd have to, take a sabbatical.
And pre-contact Hawaiian cuisine.
I like that. Ooh. Oh, I love that idea. I get Robert, Keloha to help with that one. When we uniki'd when we attempted to uniki our first two chanters after Kumu Lake passed, we did it at Waipau. And Kealoha was in charge of the mea'ai, and he said he wanted to do foods that were where it would be entirely possible 1,000 years ago.
Right.
And that was so good. It was so good. It was so amazing. So, he did things like stuffing fish into other fish and then steaming them and doing his things. He had greens of so many different kinds of plants steamed and put into things. He had so many kinds of limu and it was awesome. Kumu Hokulani was one of our loiloi, right? and Kelly Rachel and Mehana. I'm going to ask you, Olivia, to be one of our lawyers next time we get somebody. But when we sat down and ate, it was like silence for like 10 minutes. We were all just like, the only things were like sighs of delight. And at the end of it, everybody agreed that it was like, by and far the best Hawaiian meal that we had ever had. So, like, wow. So yes, we should do that. I even have pictures of that meal, so I can use that in the thing. Okay, pre-contact Hawaiian cuisine. Thank you. That's interesting. That'll be great. And everybody has to bring something, right? Yeah, we'll make it a brown bag. And then people have to. Too bad you folks on the phone would not be able to do that. Okay. Enjoy a focus on Alala. That would be neat because Alala is getting ready for release, right? Alala. That would be, it might be hard to do a whole hour on Alala, but maybe not. There's a lot to say about Alala. Any relationship between Io and the notion of a supreme Hawaiian deity? The Io and Io, I think Io has no Okina, right? The one that, and so the two, you can wordplay between the two, but I think that that's the relationship. If you were going to do that, you could certainly use Io as a symbol or as a metaphor, if you were going to do that. Hawaiian moon calendar. I have to call in Calais for that. Hawaiian moon calendar is a fun topic, but there are so many better people to do that than me. But I like the idea of it.
What about place names and plant and animals associated?
Oh, place names and Hawaiian species. Yeah. Oh, I like that. That would be fun. We can go across the Hawaiian chain. And we can even find those places where they still are there. Right. You go, so from Naio at Kanaio, right? So some Wili Wili at Nawili Wili. Okay, that's another one. Well, I'll need help from people. Huh?
We need to go to Ola Ka Āina.
Yeah, I live by Island Waika'i, right? We'll pull up that kind of stuff. I would love that. Okay, Na Manu portrayed in Oli, Hula, and Mele. Oh, how interesting that you say that, because this Saturday, this is a public service announcement, this Saturday at the Bishop Museum, is Grow Hawaii Festival, and I have been asked to give a presentation on the cultural significance of Hawaiian forest birds. So part of that will be Hula, Mele, Oli. So, if you missed that, I'll reprise it as one of this one because it's easy for me to reprise things. Okay, so cultural significance of Hawaiian birds or forest birds? I did water birds for the joint venture folks. That was a lot of fun. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're getting great suggestions, folks, on the chat box.